We have four teams left in the NBA playoffs as they go on for their quest for a Larry O'Brien trophy. But Cam and I are going to be talking about two teams in particular today that just got eliminated, the Nuggets and the Celtics. But before we do, I want to talk about how we got to this point. If you look back at the recent champions since 2020, let's say the Lakers win in 2020, and you're thinking to yourself, LeBron now has AD, a real number two, even a 1B, and the Lakers are going to go back to back in 2021. That's what we all thought, right?
What
And
you
then
thought.
yeah,
That's what you thought.
that's
But
that's what I thought. Anthony Davis gets injured in the playoffs. Milwaukee goes on. Giannis has the crown in 2021. Then everyone thinks Giannis is the best player in the NBA. They have a good core. They're going back to back. Chris Middleton gets injured. They lose to the Boston Celtics in 2022. And the Celtics go to the finals, but the Warriors beat the Celtics in the finals. What happens? Steph just won number four, Cam. I think he's a chance to get number five. Jordan Poole, you add him. Klay Thompson comes back from injury. He's good. The Warriors are going to go back to back. And what happens? The Nuggets win in 2023. And then we think the same thing with Jokic and the same thing with the Celtics. And now we're here with both of them out of the playoffs. Cam, talk to me. How did we get to this point? Because you look at the Celtics and you think it's just Jason Tatum's injury, but the salary cap and other issues is a much bigger fish to fry than just one injury.
yeah, I mean, first things first, we did dodge a bullet by not placing a large wager on the Celtics to repeat. You know, you and I were debating doing that, and we praise God every day that we did
Value
not place
wasn't
that.
there. Value wasn't there. Thank God
Yeah,
the value wasn't there.
yeah, we were still close. We were still close. Nonetheless, I mean, the Celtics, I mean, the first things first, though, talking about the parity in the NBA, I mean, the CBA is doing its job. It's really hard for these teams to retain their top talent and players and build those quote unquote super teams that we've seen in the past. So guys like the Boston Celtics are going to have to make some tough decisions this summer. I mean, that payroll has got to be approaching close to 500 million, I want to say, for next season. I mean, Holiday getting up there in age, he's 34 years old. I think there's a good chance Big Al could be retiring as well. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. I mean, the one thing that I'm 100% certain of, and I've seen some stuff on Twitter brewing and like, different trade ideas, there's no splitting up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I don't think I would move off Derek White before I would consider moving Jaylen Brown. Those are your two core pieces. You've made hundreds of videos talking about building your team around those wing defenders and stuff like that. And if you have two guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, I don't think there's a world where you can break it up. If you have to move off Derek White, obviously you don't want to do that, but I'm parting with him before I'm moving off Jaylen Brown.
I think what a lot of people aren't talking about is how this previous Celtics owner, his name is eluding me right now, how he essentially got out from all of this and sold the team before we are where we are, right? You'd mentioned how super teams are hard to build now because the payroll of them is just not sustainable for NBA owners with the luxury tax and the CBA. The Celtics knew that and still said, we're going to pay a ton of money. Why? Because we're guaranteeing ourselves two championships. We're going to win in 2024. We're going to win in 2025. We might have had to pay more than other teams, but we have two Larry O'Brien trophies to show for it. And now Tatum gets injured, and now they only have one ring, and now they have to address these problems way before they thought they would have to.
No, 1000%. You're exactly right. And if they did go back to back, then, having to pay these ridiculous contracts doesn't look as bad. But you can't even think it'd be a different story. We'd be having a different conversation if Jason Tatum was going to be completely healthy next year. And maybe they could run it back one more time with paying the luxury tax and everything like that. But Jason Tatum's going to miss almost the entire season, if not a good percentage of it. So do you really feel great going into next season without moving off some of these big guys? I mean, I think even Celtics fans would agree. It's going to be tough to win a championship next season without a healthy Jason Tatum, regardless of what moves you make.
Yeah, the Celtics are in a tough spot. Well, the ownership is in a tough spot because, like I said, the previous owner, right, he puts this huge tax bill together with all the players they have, and then he sells a team when the Celtics were at its highest.
Get their powers.
He
Yep.
sold the team at its highest values from a business perspective. He got out right at the perfect time, correct? But the guy who now has the Celtics asset, who now owns that team, now you're looking and you're saying, wait. You want me to pay an exorbitant amount of money for a team that's not going to get back to where we are because our number one player isn't there? If they go back to back and then he says, you know what? I have to pay this money. I'm in a corner because We can
Go for the three-peat at that
go for
point.
the three-peat, right? But now everything changes, and I'm wondering what direction new ownership will go in. I guess let's start there, man. You said no Jaylen Brown. What
I
does
think I consider Jaylen Brown untouchable. I think you can't break up the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum core. As much as that contract is overblown and people are he's gonna be in trade. He's gonna be in trade concepts all summer for sure. I don't think they're gonna part up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I do think Holiday will be at the end of the day is gonna be the guy to get moved. He's 34 years old, but he's a proven defender and a proven winner. I still think he's got some trade value there. Whether that's a first round pick or two and maybe a promising young guy. I'm not sure what that package looks like, but I think he's going to end up being the odd man out 100%.
it's got to be more than just Holiday. So Holiday's a shoe-in basically for
Yeah,
what
I think he's gone 100%.
that's when it gets tough because you got to ask yourself. I mean, sure, Jaylen Brown, that's DEFCON 1 for every Celtics fan. They never want to have to press that button. But if you realistically look at this team and where it needs to go, that might be the best choice. And I don't want to have to go down that rabbit hole. That's another video for another day. But the Celtics, this is a problem that they just kept putting off. And now it's here. Now the Roosters are here, you know? So it's going to be a very interesting conversation on what they do.
Yeah, I mean, you also gotta low key if you're Al Horford. I'm considering retirement at this point as well. That contract's up. Like I said, it'd be different if Jason Tatum is healthy next season, but he doesn't exactly have a whole lot left in the tank. So unless he wants to come back on like a vet minimum or something like that, the Boston can't afford to pay him anything more than that, honestly.
Mentioned the wings and the archetypes that, are the best to build a championship roster. The Nuggets don't have that guy. The Nuggets don't have a Kawhi Leonard, Jason Tatum robot built in a lab. They have a Nikola Jokic. They have the best center in the NBA. They have a guy who is in the smack dab middle of his prime, who's won 3 MVPs, can make a case that he should be on 4 or 5 if Embiid gets it, and then, the Shea one this year. Who knows? But he's at the peak of his powers. And the Nuggets have Aaron Gordon. They call him Mr. Nugget now because he shows up and he's the perfect wingman next to Jokic. And then you have Jamal Murray, someone who hasn't reached an all-star team, but is still one of the best playoff risers we've seen in the playoffs. What's your take on the Nuggets? Because personally, I see them take the Thunder, who are minus 900 to win that series, to 7 games. I can't see that and say we got to break everything up. If anything, you overachieved after firing your head coach.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, parting with the head coach before the playoffs even start was a questionable decision from the beginning. But like you said, I mean, when you have the best player in the world, you're going to have to make some moves. I'm not sure if you saw Jokic's comments in the press conference after they asked him, "Do you think this team was capable of winning a championship?" And he essentially said, "I don't know, like maybe. I mean, we didn't win it this year, so not exactly what you want to hear from your leader and stuff like that." Aaron Gordon, I don't think he'll end up getting moved. I mean, his chemistry and after the playoff performance, he had also like 2 game winners and just clutch defense the entire time. He was playing on half a hamstring the other day on shot up on horse tranquilizers. Thank goodness he was able to finish that game in one piece. But I don't think he'll end up getting moved. I don't think Jamal Murray will end up getting moved just because, again, like I said, that chemistry he has with Jokic. So if they are going to make a move, it's going to be around Michael Porter Jr. Now, what that package looks like, I'm not so sure. I mean, could we see them make a run at a big name guy like Kevin Durant? Possibly. I don't think it's very likely. They're not going to be able to win a bidding war against Houston or any of those other teams that are going to be interested in him. But I would be surprised if the Nuggets don't break up at least one of their main pieces to try to maximize. They're going to have to be aggressive and try to maximize the last couple of years of Jokic's prime.
I wonder what direction they'll go because on the one hand, you look at their starting lineup and Michael Porter Jr., you know what? That guy playing through the injury he had, having a shoulder pad on his, arm for the entire series, gutted it out. So when he has bad performances, you've got to think with an asterisk like, oh, wait, if anything, just him being out there is a plus, right? But on the other hand, you look at the lack of depth by Denver, and I think that's why Calvin Booth is no longer employed as the general manager for the Nuggets, where they are fine with Jamal, Aaron, Michael, Jokic. They like that a lot. Christian Brown has emerged as a massive piece for this team. It comes down to the 6, 7, 8. And their 6, 7, 8 is Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther, and Peyton Watson.
Mhm.
So maybe the GM's job isn't to scrap everything. It's to work around the edges and bolster the bench rather than blowing up the starting lineup. What do you think?
Let me ask you a question about that first. If KCP was still on this team instead, does that change anything for you, or if they could have Christian Braun still coming off the bench?
Yes, or Bruce Brown. The problem is
Well,
that
Bruce Brown was too expensive, but KCP was more reasonable to get him to stay if they wanted to.
I would say yes. However, we don't get the Christian Brown we have now without him being inserted in the starting lineup, playing big time minutes alongside Jokic. I think that is the reason why we've seen his ascent. That's the reason why we've seen KCP's ascent in all these players because KCP played with LeBron and now he's playing with Jokic, and they look much better when they're inserted in lineups with those guys. So if Brown's coming off the bench. I don't know if he takes that leap. However, yeah, this team would be much better with KCP in the on the roster.
Yeah, and you did touch on Christian Braun. I want to spend a little more time on him. He is due for a 3-year, $96 million extension is what he's eligible for right now, which is, as I'm sure you agree, probably not in the best interest of the Denver Nuggets at this time, considering some of these other contracts and like you said, trying to fill out that 7, 8 man rotation. So if you're the Nuggets front office, and you're looking at that extension for Christian Braun, what are your thoughts there?
I give it to him, but then that plays into the part of Michael Porter Jr. might be on his way out.
Right,
Because I think
exactly.
what
Just like I
Christian
said.
Brown can do is he can play defense. He was the primary defender on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, correct? He was the primary defender on James Harden. Michael Porter Jr., for as good and as, he can turn on a flamethrower, he's not guarding your best guy. So I think for Christian Brown, it's not just that he's become a better shooter. It's not just that he can drive to the basket and now make reads off the two-man game with Jokic. It's also that he's picking up your best player for 48 minutes, and that has to account for something.
I'm just a quick question for you too. I don't know it off the top of my head, and I don't think they're going to move him anyways. But how old is Jamal Murray now? Do you
Jamal
any
Murray.
idea?
I do not. I would say 28 because in the bubble he was 23.
Yeah, I mean he's got to be
28
sort
years old.
28.
28
No,
years
okay,
old.
yeah.
Just
So I
turned
mean he's
28 in February too.
yeah. I mean I don't think they're going to move off him. He's definitely still got some time, and the chemistry with Jokic is just off the charts. Especially if they ever match up with the Lakers again, we know exactly how that's going to go. But like I said, I mean, when you have the best player in the world, you're going to have to be aggressive. And whether that's retooling that 6, 7, 8 man lineup, like you said, or making a bigger swing with the Michael Porter Jr. move, there's no chance the Nuggets aren't going to be aggressive this summer.
Last thing I'll say before I guess we get into our, goodbyes here. Jaylen Brown, the package, the more I think about it too, you see with Paul George how the Pacers and the Thunder got rid of Paul George and got a ton of assets back and it helped them in the future. Is there any part of the Celtics, this is a question to you, that's like, I know we love Jaylen Brown. I know he's been a great Celtic and a great person and great for the city, and he's the finals MVP. But when we look at what we can get for him right now, if they see the right offer, I don't think he's untouchable.
Yeah, I mean, I won't say he's untouchable, but it's gonna have to be an incredible offer for me to even consider breaking up Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I mean, I don't want to say it can't happen because this is the NBA. We didn't ever I would have considered Luka untouchable before the start of this season, so we know anything can happen, but I mean, I definitely see the value in sort of resetting that championship clock window with some younger contracts and really just building around Jason Tatum and trying to make sure he's that top 3, top 4 player in the NBA. But for that to happen, Jason Tatum's going to have to take at least another little step. Like, not as he's obviously a top 7 player in the NBA. I don't think anybody's going to doubt that, but if there's no Jaylen Brown anymore, there's nobody to bail you out when you're having those 4 for 17 shooting nights and stuff like that. So if you can believe Jason Tatum and also coming back from the injury that going to have to come back from, this is a serious injury that has messed up several NBA careers. I mean, I know people kind of just write it off because people like Kevin Durant have come back from this and been almost better than before, but we have to make sure if you're going to trade Jaylen Brown, you have to be sure that when you get Jason Tatum back, he's going to be as good as he was.
Yeah, I always say to wrap up how I think Tatum's a great player. I think he has had a ton of big time playoff moments. He's had 50 on MVP and beat in game seven. He's had 44, 9, and 2 in a must-win game six in Milwaukee to force a game seven in 2022. to get to the NBA Finals. The big question, or the only question about Tatum, is if I placed you on the Pacers, could you do what Tyrese Halliburton's doing? If I placed you on the Knicks, could you take over a game consistently like Jalen Brunson is doing? Regardless of what happens with Jalen Brown, the Celtics core, their surrounding supporting cast, won't be as good going forward. And for that reason, we are going to have to see Jason Tatum become the players that I just mentioned in order to win another ring. And the last thing I'll say and toss it to you before we head out of here is the NBA is in a great spot. It truly is, right? We are getting to see, even though the CBA is kind of mucking stuff up, we're getting to see parity across the league. We're getting to see good play across the league. Now we just have to see who's the king of the hill for one season. I don't want to hear any more ring talk about 3 rings and 6 rings and 4 rings and 5 rings because no one's doing what Kobe and Shaq are doing in 2000 anymore. You can't do that. That era's done with. I think getting 1 ring in this era might equate to getting multiple in another era.
That's a hot take, but honestly, I see where you're coming from. I mean, it's with these restrictions, and it could be a long, long time before we see a repeat champion, or God forbid, even a three-peat even come remotely possible. And I don't know what it's gonna take. I mean, maybe Victor Wembanyama becomes the player that people think he could become. He might be able to pull it off, but outside of him, I don't see a path to anybody becoming a repeat champion anytime soon.
Yeah, so for right now, we've got Shea, Brunson, Halliburton, Anthony Edwards, and I might as well throw Julius Randle in there for how good he's playing in this playoffs. But we're getting a new champion. We're getting a new finals MVP. Let us know in the comments who you think is going to win those awards. This is a quick, I guess, recap video from Cam and I. We'll be trying to do this more in the summer as time goes on too. But thanks for hopping on, Cam. Any last words?
That's it, and go T-Wolves.
Go T-Wolves.